Hi, at My Best Friend, one of the common things that we have to train owners to do is to administer subcutaneous fluids to their pet. This might be needed for various reasons. Probably the most common reason is a cat or a dog with kidney issues, and we need to rehydrate them on a regular basis to help keep the kidneys functioning at their top levels. So with that, I'll go over how to assemble some of the fluid lines and bags, go over some basics, and then I'll have Julie and Emily demonstrate how to give that to a pet. So with this, we're going to have a fluid bag that you'll go home with in a thick plastic bag here. We're going to open that up. Tear that open, and we'll have our fluid bag. Then from there we'll often have a couple different lines. There's going to be a line that plugs directly into the fluid bag, and we'll also have a extension set which will give you a little bit more line so that you have more to work with and more flexibility and movement when you're administering fluid. We'll also send home needles with you as well too. Different size needles. The size of the needle will depend on how much fluid you have to give. It'll depend on your pet and how reactive they are to the needle poke, and often the size of the pet as well too. So with that, we'll have different size needles. If you come to pick them up, usually the first time we'll give you different sizes to try, and then you can tell us which size works best for your pet, and next time we can give you more of those. Also, it's nice to have something like a hook or a hanger to have. In this case, we have a hook on the wall, but you're going to want to hang the fluid bag up high so that it drains the fluid through quickly to your pet. So when assembling the fluid bag here, the first thing you're going to do is hold the fluid bag upside down. You're going to take this white tab and pull that off. It's going to create, you're going to see a little hole there in the middle. We don't want to touch any of this. We want this part to stay sterile. Same thing with this. This is the plug-in, the drip set that will go into the bag. There's going to be a plastic piece over a spike here. This we're going to take off and keep sterile. We're not going to touch that part there at all. We're going to touch it down lower, grip it, and plug it right into that hole and push it in with plenty of force. A little bit of wiggle there, and that's going to attach the line to the fluid bag. Then from there, you're going to want to make sure that at first that the line is closed off. So there's multiple different ways that you can close the line so that it doesn't flow fluid through when you flip it back up. These kinds you just can push through and it'll keep it pinched. And then there's this kind as well too, which has a little plastic roller ball that will pinch at different pressures and different amounts, so you can actually use that to regulate the flow. Most of the time we're going to have it completely off or completely on for flow. I'm going to turn that down so that right now, as I turn the fluid bag upside down, nothing's going to be flowing through. I'm going to set that down, and then I'm going to add this extension set. The extension set, we have caps again, keeping the ends sterile. I'm going to take those caps off, and we're going to plug in the end of this one to the part with the wings on it here. And we're just going to, it's just a pressure fit, so you just put them together and push. And that'll give you some extra line on there as well too. This last end, it has a little screw part to it. You can unscrew that, take off the end, and that's going to be what you use to attach the needle. In this case, I'll put on a 20 gauge needle, which is the ones with the pink that we have. We're going to push it on there as a pressure fit, but to make sure it stays attached, we're going to screw that part up over that, and now it's firmly attached. We're going to leave this part on it until we're ready to administer to the pet. Now, once it's all together, we're going to hang it up high. Again, in this case, we're going to use this hook here, but having something like this, which can just be bought on Amazon, hanging here, and then this part will go over the door, works well. You can also use a hanger where you can put the hook part of the hanger through here and then hang that hanger up off of anything up high. Usually the top of a door, again, works well. So in this case, I'm going to hang it up here. And then we have our fluid line, and we're set to prime the fluid line. So to prime it, that just means we're going to run fluid to make sure that fluid is filling up the tube all the way to the tip. So I'm going to just take that off for a moment, again keeping it sterile. Open up these valves and you'll see bubbles and the fluid come through, and then it's squirting out. Once it's coming out the end, you might go just a little bit to allow some of those fluid bubbles or the air bubbles to come through, and then we'll shut it off. This is not like administering intravenously into the vein, so you don't need to worry about a few fluid bubbles. We want to try to get most of the air out of there, but if there are a few, it's not a problem. And then I'm going to put that on there for now. And now the line is primed. Couple things is right here, this is going to be your drip set. So when it is flowing water, you'll see how fast it's flowing based on that drip set there. We're going to fill that reservoir down here at the bottom up to about where that etched line is, and that allows you to see a little bit better how fast it's flowing. Now with that, we're also going to be monitoring how much fluids we're getting. Right here at the top, if you can see on the side of the bag, there are different gradations or marks. Those marks tell you how much fluid that you're getting. So this bag here comes with 1,000 milliliters or 1 liter of fluid. Most of the time, if we're administering to a cat, we're probably going to be administering somewhere between 50 and 150 milliliters at a time. So right now, this is a full liter. If we want to administer 100 milliliters, we're going to go all the way down to the 1. And once this line right here of the fluid gets down and is at the 1 mark, that's 100 milliliters. It's very precisely measured on there, so as long as the bag is free hanging and not pushed up against anything or laying up against anything, that will be accurate. So we'll watch that as we're giving fluids to monitor the amount that we're giving. Most of the time it doesn't have to be very precise. So we're going to get an estimation, and we're going to say, your pet will get about 100 milliliters of fluids every day, every other day, or at least at each administration. One other thing that can happen when you're giving fluids, sometimes this bulb here where you're using to monitor how fast the flow is going, sometimes that'll become totally full of fluid, and then you can't then see how fast it's running through the line, and you don't know if it's going really slow or really fast to your pet. And you don't want to be there for 20 minutes waiting for it to go through. So to help you monitor how fast the fluid is flowing, when it gets full like this, if you flip the bag upside down and then you squeeze this bulb, it is flexible, then some of the air will go back into this bulb, and then you have the amount of fluid in here. So that'll allow you to get some air back in there, and so you can see the administration rate of the fluids. Now, when we're talking about administration rate, there's a few things that can make a difference on that. One is the height at which you're hanging this. The higher the difference between the bag and the pet, the faster it's going to flow in. The other thing is the positioning of the needle as you poke it into the pet. If it's sometimes the bevel of the needle, the part where the fluid flows through, can be up against some tissue, and that'll impede the flow and make it go slower. So sometimes you might need to reposition the needle, just not taking it out of the pet, but just moving it slightly within the tissues. And with that will often make that the drops here are moving a lot faster. You can sometimes, if you have a second person, squeeze the bag, and that will often make it flow faster as well too. That's a different option compared to keeping it higher or elevating it even more. So that's the basics of assembling and how we're going to do this. When you're learning to do this, we often schedule appointments with a technician, so you can call and ask for fluid administration appointment where we teach you how to do that with a technician in a room, go through all of this. If your pet is, pretty calm in here, we can even try to have you do it with your pet at the time of the appointment and go through all of these steps. Now I'm going to have Julie and Emily show you how we would do that on a pet.
Here we go. Always replace your needle from your previous needle. Today we're going to go with the 20 for Huckleberry. Whenever you go to poke, you want to find a nice spot where you will have enough skin to fill up with fluid, so where it won't get too tight. And you just take your needle off, you pull the skin up, and then you go in. And then once you are in a good spot, just hold it with your dominant hand. With your non-dominant hand, you're going to unclamp your fluid line, and you will look at your bag and see that it is flowing through.